All right. Let me talk about then managing the expectations. So Jade mentioned that everyone can be whatever they want to be. Now, what makes someone dream big and another person doesn't have, let's say, that prosperity in thinking of or dreaming big? What differentiates between individuals? What do you think, Jade?
How we were raised.
Mhm.
As I said about obviously our childhood and stuff, it does really mold you. If you're raised in a very closed-minded or cultural or a difficult upbringing in a third world country, let's say, you're not going to have that dream because you haven't really seen it or heard it, or it's doesn't exist in childhood. You understand? So like obviously for me, I think I was very lucky. I grew up with my dad making movies, so I saw all these movie stars. I think this is where why I'm so dramatic in life. And like this like idea of I want to be a bit famous, but not like be in a movie or something. Just because I've seen this fame, so it's kind of given me ideas and the upbringing that I've had. So obviously being successful came from that and what I've
The
seen.
environment that we grow up in plays a role in how we, let's say, shape our behavior or shape the future that we might aspire to. What do you
Yeah,
think,
think
Reza?
about it. Like when we're kids, like obviously we subconsciously we're picking things up from when we're babies.
Mm.
And if our parents are not like showing us or teaching us things, or if they don't even have the resources to do that, then how can you dream big? Unless you move out of that and move country. I mean, it does happen. There are stories about it, but if you're growing up in such a poor or a place that doesn't have these things, some people don't even have TVs, so how could they know? They could only really come up with what they've seen or what they know.
I see.
I agree with James. Of course, like, there's so many factors which, you know, limit a person. So it could be exposure, obviously, if you're living somewhere where you don't have enough exposure. And that's why back in the day when, it wasn't people who were living in a place who were the most knowledgeable, but the ones who were well traveled because they had seen. Their mind was more open to concepts. Their mind was more open to different cultures, different religions, different approaches, different perspectives. So yes, exposure means a lot. I would, I'm very lucky to be born and raised in a very diverse place. I was born and raised in Dubai, and when we were in school, back then our school, it had 134, no, yeah, 132 nationalities. And in a single classroom, we had almost 19, 20 nationalities in every classroom. So we were growing up with different Indians, Pakis, whites, blacks, you name it. And then, obviously, as a kid, when I would go back home, I'd be like, man, I'm from India, but he's from India, but he doesn't speak the same language. He doesn't even look like me. And then mom and dad would explain, so dad is quite well traveled. So he would be like, yes, they're probably from a different part. And you have to sort of embrace that and you have to accept it that there are different people around you and they're not always going to sort of be as per your liking. But then you have to sort of respect them and get along with them. And then if we don't have that acceptance, that is a block towards growth. You limit yourself. We see that a lot in multi-diverse societies where people come directly from, let's say, a third world country, and they have culture shock. They go through that. They go, oh my God, what is happening? Man, you've left the country to come to a new country, mingle with the people. But what they'll do is they'll be in their own little societies. For example,
They
if
still
I
they
if
still
I
they stick to what they know, I think.
yeah, and the lack to the lack of acceptance that you're already there. So, when in Rome, do as the Romans. You don't have to change your culture. You have to accept it. You can go across history and see that the greatest societies were where there was acceptance of all cultures. You know, there was people from different cultures, different religions, and they were all sort of living together. And then someone decided that, oh no, and then that's where extremism and everything comes in, but that's a different topic altogether. But yes, not being open to change is one of the leading issues where you sort of don't grow and you limit your growth. You like Jade said, you only as far as you can think due to your upbringing, due to your limited exposure, due to your own thought process, and also certain fear. Many people have a fear of, change, that they're like, oh my God, what if I do this? But in my society, from my upbringing, this is unacceptable. And if I do this, I might get ousted from society. And unfortunately, that happens in a lot of societies. It happens in a lot of societies, third world, where people are not willing to that change. And if that one person grows, they grow him out of the society itself. Like they're not welcomed back, and things like that. They still happen. They still take place, regardless of many third world countries, which are also big economies now. I'm not going to name them, of course, but the societal thing remains somewhere. It's underlying. Like, for example, in India, there's not real rules on the road, but there's an underlying system above that chaos. Everybody knows what's happening. And they're very comfortable. They're very comfortable with that. They don't want to change. They're super comfortable with that. There is a bullock cart, there's a rickshaw, there's a bike, there's a cycle, there's a truck, everything on that same traffic. And nobody's dying. Everybody's just intertwining, and life goes on. So there is system under that chaos, which they don't want to change. But the ones who do change, they don't live in that system anymore. They have to move out. And then once they do move out, they can never go back to that system again because they'll feel unsafe, issues, growth, so many factors come into play. For example, I'll give you an example. Vodafone, when they went to India and they tried to compete with Reliance, and Reliance is one of the biggest telecom operators, and they have like cutthroat, internet prices and everything. Vodafone was having a hard time competing with them because they're coming from a different mindset, different culture, different practices. When they come to India and they go like, oh my God, we're having such a hard time. And they actually, it's there in the news. There was a press release where the CEO of Vodafone says that, there's different practices. He didn't say malpractice, but he said there's a different approach to practices over here. And the CEO of Reliance said, this is a big boy market. If you can't play, then go home.
So
Now, with that in mind,
can we change, like you mentioned, the fears and you mentioned the upbringing, you and Jade. Can we change that as we grow up? Like, is it set in stone? And I believe it can be changed. And if yes, how can we change it? Like, what should the individual do to change their destiny, let's say? What do you think, Jade?
Well, move out of their country where they are. Like if they're going to stay where they are and they're going to stay the same, well, they're not going to change. But if they move out and out of their comfort zone, let's say, and they do want to dream big, because some people do. Some people don't even go to school or go to college or get an education, and look, they still turn into something. Artists, actors, writers. It all starts from something, and it's not always education. Sometimes they just have the mindset. And as Reza said, obviously, when they choose to be different, some societies can't take it, so they don't go back. So obviously, as a parent, obviously, with my upbringing and being a parent now in this generation, of course, I still want my daughter to understand about equality. And there's obviously we change how we bring up our children, right? Well, I have. I want her to be able to do whatever she wants to do in her life. She has a choice. And I don't want her to be constricted she needs to know how big the world is. And so obviously now with social media being a thing, this is one of the ways we can reach out to others who want to grow. If countries don't have social media, or they're, a third world country, then I think now it's not many countries are like that anymore.
You mean in terms of the exposure of the outside world?
Yes. Like a lot of exposure is, with everything going on in the world, I'm sure people will want to move regardless, even if they don't know what's going to happen.
How can you put this in your daughter? Like, how can you teach her that? For example, now she's young and you need to expose her to opportunities in life, show her that everything can be done, but yet, she might be exposed to also different parts or different, let's say, upbringings of different people at school. So how can you as a parent manage that? Like, what does Jade do?
Well, obviously it depends on me and her dad and how we speak to her, how we raise her, what we're doing in front of her. Like, Angel, she's lucky. She's got her dad, who is in a really loving, happy relationship, which is great because she's seeing how a happy relationship is, and she's seeing love, and she is loved. And then she sees me, I'll be nice about myself, the strong, independent woman that's like working really hard and earning money and doing everything so that she has everything that maybe I didn't have when I was young. So growing up myself was really difficult. I had a hard childhood. When I see her, it's like I'm looking at myself when I was young, and I don't want her to go through the struggles that I went through. And so this whole me being strong, independent is this one day she's going to grow up and she's going to know why I worked so hard. And this is what I always have to explain to her. And even with her dad, he works hard too, but she has the best of both in two different sectors.
What do you think, Reza?
Well, children, when it comes to children, for example, I've got a niece and a nephew, and they're practically growing up in front of me, right? And then obviously, from what little I remember as a kid, and how parents used to uh, sort of understand what's going on in school. That communication to understand what you're coming across, what you're being taught, who are the people you're coming across. Um, what is the sort of communication that's happening? Are you sort of being bullied, or are you being supported, or are you making good friends? Because see, those are the influences, right? At a young age, like when Jade said, and we had spoken in our previous last conversation, is that download period. And what we absorb at home and what we absorb when we're away from home, both of them play an equal role. Minds can get corrupted. We can grow in the wrong direction. We can think of other things as kids and limit our growth. Like, for example, uh, a great athlete, young, smart athlete, young boy, lots of potential, gets into the wrong friendships, destroys his health. Basic, like one of the most stereotypical examples I could give. And it's happened a lot, right? It's happened a lot. A lot of guys who were very, very fit and everything, as they grow at home, the influence might be different. They might be positively influenced that, this is right, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this. And, we understand that you're interacting with 10 different people, 10 different characters, but try to filter out as much as you can. But then parents, I feel that that's as much they can do, correct? They're not behind you the whole time in school and stuff. And then obviously the values they have instilled inside the kid, they will shine at some point. Either the child chooses themselves, it's a personal decision at the end of the day, trust me, that they choose and they go a separate way, which can hinder their own progress and growth. Sometimes there's, of course, like I said, the external factors matter a lot. Many people say that, oh, um, you should focus on yourself. But as a kid, you can't really focus on yourself, right? Because the mind is young, it's naive, it's innocent, and it's easily distracted. I'm sure like it's happened with me when I was young. It's happened with a lot of my friends, and I have two groups of friends who have destroyed lives, and the others are very successful. So it really comes down to the values which our parents instill in us, and then how we sort of try to implement it as it goes by. And like, I see Jade a lot. Like, I follow her all the time on Instagram and stuff. I'm not stalking you, but yeah, like you're there.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see the
Sure
stories.
you ain't.
I see your stories and everything. And
I see
mashallah,
them, I'm
I
not
see
talking.
her. Yeah, and the way she is, like the way you can see that she's actively involved in her kid's life. There's lots of communication,
I'm
even
blushing
though
now.
she's always working hard. You see her putting in the grind. You see her early mornings in the morning. She's dropping her to school. She's having conversations when they're going to school. They're making videos together. So there's that healthy communication, and that shows you that yeah, mother and daughter talk a lot.